Georgia Bass Tech fans, welcome. Hope everybody stayed safe during these storms that's rolled through the area tonight. I know it's been pretty interesting with all the amount of rain that we've had from winter to summer so quickly. So I want to say first on the banner that was going across the bottom of the screen for G2 Gemini jerseys. They're one of our Hooked Up Live sponsors. The code that was on it that said G2 Georgia 22 just changed the year from 22 to 23. So effective January on through the rest of this calendar year will be for the year 23. So just make sure you get your discount through with that. But no further ado, we want to thank each and every one of our Hooked Up Live sponsors. Line Taming Serum, Just Catch Bass, Star Lures, Dugout Bait and Tackle, Tiny Boat Nation Outdoors, PFD Fishing, and G2 Gemini jerseys. Get down, check each and every one of them out on the web. In the very beginning of this feed, if you go back and watch it, it has all the information that you go through social media pages and such like that to find each and every one of them. We thank each and every one for that. So, want to take just a quick reminder before we dive into the show tonight, so that way everybody hears this and knows this. We have our Nights of Lights show that is coming up very, very, very soon. 2 weeks away, it's actually going to be starting. So if you have not already purchased a meal ticket, all you have to do is very, very simple. Just go down here, link below, georgiabasstech.com. and click on Nights of Lights, and it'll give you the information through Venmo that you actually have to pay for your meal tickets. So if you're planning on coming and you're planning on eating, purchase some meal tickets. Needs to be in as soon as possible. I know it's tough with the holidays and everything, but make sure to get those meal tickets purchased because we're limiting how many meal tickets we're actually doing based on the Shriners that's going to be providing the meals for everybody. So if you have any questions, just message us directly. We'll be more than glad to help out. So no further ado, our introductions tonight for Five Alive Bass Club that's going to be joining us is David and Joey. Welcome, man.
Thanks for having me.
And correct me if I'm right, is it Joe or Joey?
Either one. Some people call me Joe, some people call me Joey.
I got you. David, I think your audio feed, let's hear it again. Let's make sure you're working. No, it's not working. Try to reconnect back to the other device and see. We've been having some technical difficulties a little bit tonight, so hopefully we can get some audio feed going. So
how's that?
There you are. There you are. So just to mention, both y'all men were not together as points champion, but Joey, you was points champion with another angler?
That is correct. Jonathan Cumby. So he was my partner, and he called me up and was like, "Hey man, you wanna fish Five Alive?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm down. Let's give it a whirl and see how we do." And sure enough, we've just kept over the course of the season just tacking on wins and trying to stay within the top 5 to make the cut. So he actually fishes another club, and so there was a conflict of interest. But I fished with David in the past for years, and it just all comes together because David and I, we fish really well together.
I see you sporting that bright red there, David.
Oh, that's just a coincidence. I'm not a Georgia fan.
I'm not a football fan by any means, but I know from what everybody said from the game, it was very very stressful watching it. I heard from the other night.
I mean, I'm sure that if you were rooting for Georgia, it was. I actually wanted the other team to win just because I don't really care for Georgia. So, but I think they paid old boy off to make that crazy kick because he didn't even miss it. He went totally about me playing golf, just right hook.
Wow. So Jonathan Comby's calling you Big Fish Joey.
That's my nickname over the years. They've called me that for a while, Big Fish Joey. So But
is it because you're accustomed to always bringing in that kicker fish?
I tried to, it's Jonathan will tell you sometimes like we'll go a whole tournament and I won't catch anything but one fish, but it'll be a big fish.
Hey,
So
that's all that's needed. That one.
It is.
Sometimes.
I can vouch for that.
We're going to kind of just dive in periodically, back and forth, bounce between questions. If you got questions tonight you want to ask these men, we're going to put it out there, see if they'll take and give you some answers to it. So Ron Pendergrass is asking, what's your go-to bait to catch a fish? Dave, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Man, I'm definitely a worm guy. In any different type of ways, drop shot, shaky head, Carolina, Old Texas, weightless. I mean, 99% of the time, that's going to be my confidence.
It's been a long time since I have actually fished like a weightless worm. Really has.
I mean, it works great on some lakes and other lakes, not so much. I really don't use it as much in the reservoirs, though, honestly. I mean, there's certain times of the year where it really works out. But I noticed in the reservoirs it's not as strong as it is in some of the larger bodies.
BFJ?
I love to throw a rattle trap. Traps are my favorite. Traps have always been something that I grew up fishing. Especially when the bite is right and the momentum's going. I mean, I can bring one rod on a tournament and it'll be a trap. It's going to be tied on. But then again, I like throwing chatterbaits. Chatterbaits are a lot of fun. I'm a movement bait kind of guy. I just, I like to slow it down a little bit, like David said, you can go finesse, do a drop shot or shaky head. But I would say I like my moving baits cranking. That's just my style, though.
I don't know, Joey, you throw a jig a lot too.
Yeah, I would say a jig. I would probably say that would be my number 2.
Some of my most memorable days have came throwing rattle trap.
Yep.
And it's very few times that I have actually committed to throwing a rattle trap. Very few times. Good question. There was another one, and let's kind of dive in first. I've got a question for y'all first, and then we'll get to some more of the questions. So I know that David, you've got a boat.
Yes.
We'll take and dive into yours in just a second. Joey, do you have a boat of your own?
I do.
So let's hear about Joey. Let's hear about yours first.
I run an E-Propulsion Navy 6.0. It's on a G3 1548. I call it the tin can. And I grew up fishing a little lake near the house called Lake Horton my whole life. And my mom and dad, ever since I could basically walk, I would go down to the lake and throw a line in. And as when I got older, my dad bought me a little John boat with an electric, basically little Minn Kota on the back of it. It was probably only a 20-pound thrust, but, and then I just slowly over the years have gotten bigger boats and, and she's done her job.
So what are you running the lithium battery packs E-Propulsion offers, or you got your own separate?
I have my own packs.
Okay. Trolling motor on front?
I have a Minn Kota. I want to say it's 110-pound thrust for the front, and I'm running a low ran step finder.
You got forward facing sonar on it?
I don't. I'm old school.
I got you. Ain't nothing wrong with that. So, David, let's. I've got some stuff actually uploaded. As far as David, your boat was pretty neat as far as what you had actually. I wished I had some more before pictures of it. And while you're talking, I'm gonna kind of bounce back and forth on the screen and kind of show. So David, kind of diving in, talking about your boat, who built it for you, and what all you got done to it.
All right. Well, I'll start off by saying by far I didn't do nothing to it. If anything I did, I made it worse. So I picked up the boat probably about 3 years ago. I hunted it down once I found out about the late '90s Lowe's boat and their what they're built out of, which is thinner than anybody else. Which I really didn't care. Most people dog on that because of the durability, but running electric and everything, I wasn't too concerned about busting rivets and all that stuff. So the whole boat's made out of point 60. So it's real thin when most boats are made out of 75 up to 125, and even some of the big aluminum boats are 150. So this is definitely a thin boat. The boat itself weighs about 600 pounds empty. So it's a light boat for a 17-foot. I want to say it's 78 inches wide across the back. So it's wide also. And then I had Anthony at Brigade Boats. After I tore it apart and fished out of it 2 seasons, just straight ugly, bare metal everywhere. I finally got with Anthony at Brigade, and I gave him the boat, and I told him pretty much to have free range of whatever he wanted to do. There was a few things that I wanted done the way I wanted, but the rest of it, I basically let him have full control and let him just use his creativity, which turned out way better than I ever could have dreamed it up. But, it's always coulda, woulda, shoulda. And now after he just keeps rolling out nice boats. There's stuff I wish we'd have done different. It makes me want to build another boat just because I want it a little bit different than how this one is. So I don't know. It might happen.
And I laid eyes on this. You actually brought the boat and showed it down there at Lake Juliet at the TEC last year.
Yes.
And it does not do it justice. I mean, the decking space, that back deck from this picture, it's on it now. I mean, it's huge back there. That's one of the largest lids for that back compartment lid I have ever witnessed in a boat.
So Nate with Tiny Boat Nation, he's the one that built all the hatches. And I know at the time of us ordering that hatch, that was the biggest hatch he ever built. I think that still holds. I think it still holds up. That's the biggest one he's ever sold or put in a boat itself. So
and you went that way just that way you could fit more batteries into it with running the e-propulsion outboard, right?
Yeah. So it's set up. It's got enough area in there to run either 4 of the old Navy batteries and still have space left over, or it can run 2 of the new Evo batteries from e-propulsion. It can hold, they'll both fit inside of it. I mean, at one point we was talking about running duals on the back of it. So I want to make sure I have plenty of space to put batteries.
That is cool. And yours is unique. I mean, from this picture, your front of your boat, most of your tournament guys have got live wells going in towards the back. But it's actually, you've got it up towards the front.
Yeah, I mean, just after, everybody runs to the front of the boat to try to get that nose down during tournaments to get that little extra speed out of it. Well, we went ahead and put my live well up there so I had more room for the batteries in the back. And the boat sits almost perfectly level in the water. And if nobody's in the boat and the live well isn't full, the boat only sits about 1.5 inches in the water. It sits basically on top of the water. It's so light. I mean, we did anything we could to lighten the boat up.
That's awesome. So tell me about this picture, because I mean, did you have an officer escort or something, or
no? So let's see here. Which one was it? I believe it's the guy in the brown vest. He was just driving by and doing patrolling around, and he's stopped by Anthony's and seen the boats being built, and they just pulled up just to talk. I mean, where he's at, I mean, everybody's real friendly. They pulled up just to talk, and just so happened to be that was the day I was picking the boat up. So he's seen the boat 2 or 3 times over the course of Anthony putting it back together. So he got to see the reveal of it too. So it was kind of cool.
That is awesome. So you've got the forward facing sonar. So one of the questions on here, let me get back to the question comment that was on it. Which screen do you use with your Panoptix setup? Have any of you used the Panoptix Plus, and is there a difference between them?
So I actually don't have it, but most of my other partners do have it. So I've not used Plus, but I do know looking at if you're looking at say the 9 inches versus the 10-inch screens, you can definitely see a lot more, a lot clearer picture on some of the higher end units that Garmin offers. I've also messed around with the Lowrance one on another one of my buddy's boats. And, I really don't think there's a big difference. It's whatever you already are accustomed to. If you're a Garmin guy, go for it. If you're a Lowrance guy, go that way. The only one I haven't messed with, but I've kind of heard is subpar, was the Humminbird. And it blows my mind because it was the last one released. And you don't think they could have knocked the other two out of the park, but apparently everybody says it was subpar for having to wait an extra 2 years after Garmin released theirs and a year after Lowrance released theirs.
Yeah. Welcome, Chris.
Hey.
Hopefully the storms didn't set you back from down there rolling through.
No, I went to go grab something to eat, and I came back, and there was like 4 customers here that drove all the way from Louisiana to pick up a battery, and I was like, let me deal with them first. I'll jump on a live stream in a minute. So sorry I'm late.
To introduce y'all, Chris, this is Joey and David with 5 Alive.
Hey, kids.
What's going on, brother? Hey, just a side note. That's who painted that boat red.
It is, ain't it? I forgot about that.
It is the guy that painted the boat.
The man, the paint schemer himself.
That was a gorgeous paint job.
OUGA red, ain't it?
No. Nope. It is like 19-layer candy Harley pearl something or another.
Harley denim pearl.
Harley denim pearl, that's what it is.
Harley denim. Love it.
It was a long paint job.
How many coats is it total?
Do what?
How many coats was it?
I think it was like, 9 or 10 total.
Wow. You was ready to see that boat leave.
Well, it was just, we did it I think it was in the middle of summer, and it was hot. And the boat wouldn't fit in my shop, so we had to do it outside. And Anthony came to film it. So I just been squatted down all day painting the side of that boat nonstop. It's like you get done with one coat and you'll mix up another color because it's got so many colors in it. But it looks gorgeous though when it's done.
So let's hear about boat setups. Okay, so I'm just curiosity for speed, because you're talking about. I mean, that's a 1760 something.
I think it's 78.
78. Sorry. What speeds are you seeing roughly out of it? Non-loaded, just you yourself in there.
By myself with just, a day of tackle, nothing crazy heavy. I have seen 10.5 by myself. I average high 9s by myself. And then with 2 guys in it, I average high 8s to very low 9s. Just depends on how big my partner is.
It is.
Which
crazy.
battery are you running?
I'm running the older Navy batteries.
That's like they're like the equivalent of the E80 now.
Yeah, but you got to run 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, they're only 60 amp hours a piece.
Okay.
65s, something like that.
What about you, Joey? What are your speeds you're seeing out of your boat setup?
Roughly, I'd say 8.5, but
Tournament loaded.
So that's probably. I like to conserve battery when everyone else is like blasting off. I'm usually that guy in the back that's just like puttering along, just because, especially like when you go to hard labor and you got to make a run all the way up that one arm. I mean, you can burn through some battery.
And I want to say something. So a lot of folks might be watching it maybe for the first time, and they don't understand the concept to electric only stuff. So a lot of these lakes, like Joey, you'd mentioned, grew up Lake Horton. A lot of these reservoir lakes that's built here in Georgia were built with the rules in place. You're not even allowed to have any type of gasoline, motors, tanks, anything on a boat. So we in Georgia have kind of got a unique situation where anglers down here that wants to fish these bodies of water, we have no other option of just running electric other than that. So when it gets in a competitive edge, you know, the electric outboards have really took off here in Georgia tremendously. So I know ePropulsion is really, really leading the pack as far as innovation and coming up with some great ideas in their research and development. And, you know, I can say this, one of the first ePropulsion products I ever witnessed was a couple of years ago when I went out and filmed some B-roll footage and stuff like that. David, I believe you was fishing with Travis at the time over at Bear Creek, and y'all had the dual ePropulsions on them.
Yep.
And that was one of the fastest boats I had actually seen at that time for all electric.
Yeah, at that time, Travis boats, with me and him both in it, I think we was running about 11 and a half, because that was when my boat was all tore down. So at the time, my batteries and motor were just sitting in the shop, and the boat was all tore apart. So we got the bright idea one night, let's just put both of them on the back of Travis's boat.
Yeah.
So we ran a whole season with both motors on the back of Travis's boat.
I believe it or not, it was Travis, David, and myself. We ended up buying 3 ePropulsions all at the same time. And we all sat down together one night, and I was like, let's just do it, guys, and ride the wave and see where it goes. And they were like, all right, you know, because the competition's out there. And I was like, oh, let's just, you know, let's just try it, you know. And then it just kept going on from there.
We were actually the first 3 people to have one this side of the Mississippi.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, there was a couple that was out on the West Coast area, but that was right when ePropulsion started coming to America, and I got somehow I found them and started looking up and talking to them and everything, and I really liked the product, and the price was definitely under competitive prices were going around at the time. So yeah, we were the first 3.
Hang on, David. I'm gonna get up and leave. It's like the going trend. I'm gonna leave you with the show.
I'm sorry, my battery's like on like 5%.
I was kidding, Joey. I mean, Chris got what's this? You changed shirts?
No, I had to go take my hoodie off. I'm sweating in here.
Oh, I got you. I don't know if you heard me say that or not, Chris. I was like, man, I just want to leave David with it, let him start talking on.
No, y'all ain't sold enough ePropulsion motors for me to buy air conditioning in here yet, and it's a little hot and muggy, so I had to take a hoodie off.
It's wintertime, man. So let's talk about Blue Ridge. So being the Joey, your points champion with Comby, have either of you been up to Lake Blue Ridge yet fishing?
I have not. The last time I went to Lake Blue Ridge, I was in high school, and we knew somebody that had a lake house, but we didn't fish. We just tubed the whole time. So, but I mean, from what I've gathered, it's a really deep lake.
It's about 100 and I don't know, 120 foot, 100 something like that. It's not. I mean, to me, here in 100-foot depth, it doesn't really intimidate me too much. I mean, I fished right there at Carter's Lake, and Carter's Lake's like 400. It's the tallest it's a tallest earthen structure filled dam east of the Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
So it's
hold on, it's a what? Say that again.
It is are you being facetious right now?
No, I'm serious. I couldn't follow. It's the tall. This lake is tall.
Carter's Lake, the dam,
okay,
is the tallest earthen dam built east.
Earthen, I mean, they packed up a bunch of dirt.
So it is actually a rock fill dam.
Okay.
Completely rock fill. I mean, like you can see where they, between the valley of the mountain, and then just chunked all the rock and put it in there. It's huge. I mean, we fished.
They just filled it up full of rock and some dirt and some Flex Seal and called it good?
I don't know about Flex Seal. Highly doubt that he had that in the 70s.
And where's Carter's Lake?
It is north of Atlanta, let's say an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
Roughly.
You have to forgive me. I don't get out much.
That's all good. So, but y'all are not, okay, Ben, y'all have not fished. Y'all catching smallmouth, meanmouth. I mean, David, you actually shared me a picture, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen. I mean, you're not unfamiliar with catching a meanmouth. That's a combination mixture between a smallmouth and a spotted bass. So, what do y'all?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Sorry there, Chris.
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to looking at it there, buddy. You can see the basically the coloration of a smallmouth from its gills down. It's kind of got that smallmouth look, but the head on it, you can.
It looks like a smallmouth head, though.
No, it's more spotted.
More of a spot head. But now that one was really cool. Once we threw it in a live well and weighed it in, at the end of the day, it lightened up in the live well. And when it lightened up, it looked just like a spot did. So that one was probably caught about 35, 40 foot of water off the bottom. And it was dark. Like, we was unsure if it was a spot because the lake we were fishing on, smallmouths had to be 18, and that one was, I think, 17 3/4. And so we really looked. I mean, I'm sitting in there trying to scroll through pictures online, trying to figure out what it was exactly. We took a gamble, but then once we got back to the weigh-in, I mean, it looked way different. I wish I'd have took a picture of it at weigh-in because it was so much lighter.
So, Joey, you mentioned something earlier about I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. I was trying to look something up differently. I've lost it. Chris, if you got a question, you can go ahead.
I wasn't here earlier. Otherwise, I'd help you out.
Started. But I got you.
You know that thing that Merrick was talking to you about earlier? He's thinking about it now. It's that. That's what he wants to talk about. You're welcome.
So awesome. No, I was meaning if you have any questions to ask, go ahead.
Oh, I have tons of questions.
You go ahead, fire away.
So what was y'all's most, I don't know if he's already asked this or not, what was y'all's most memorable thing that happened this tournament season for y'all?
Wow. Well, for me, and Jonathan here will probably tell you this, we fished a reservoir near the house. And it was the very first tournament of Five Alive. It rained the night before. I want to say it was the end of January this time last year. And it was so cold and the wind was blowing so bad that we were reeling. And we got to talking, and I was like, hey, man, let's go to this cove over here and get out of the wind because the wind's been beating this bank probably all night. And the whole entire tournament, we probably caught, it was over probably 50 fish, over 50. We were counting them like just all bass, like 2-pound bass constantly, 3-pound. I mean, it was insane. And then we won the tournament, but it was just, we stayed in this one little pocket the whole entire time. And that's, yeah, it was crazy. It was one of the coldest days, but because every time we would reel, ice would build up on the rod tip. And y'all been in that situation, I'm sure, where you're just out there, but I mean, you're catching them. So you're just like, let's just keep grinding it out.
Have you ever tried the line taming serum, one of our sponsors product?
I have not.
So it actually, I've seen it firsthand, used it myself. When it does get that cold, you can actually take that line taming serum and put little droplets on your eyelets and stuff, and it really helps out with not freezing up as much.
I'll have to try that in a couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, I got some.
Or you could just not go fishing when it's icicles outside. What is wrong with y'all?
Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes
it's so good.
wants to plan a tournament in the middle of the winter, in the middle of the mountains. So I don't know. I'm kind of the same way. Why go that cold?
All right. So here's about your most memorable moment there, David.
Man, this year, my most memorable moment, I ain't gonna lie, I struggled this year. This has probably been one of my worst years. I know Joey really don't want to hear this after we're about to go fish the TEC together, but I mean, I struggled this year.
Well, what was your worst moment then?
Waiting on his boat to get done.
Yeah, that was rough.
And the best moment was when it got done.
That was the best and the worst. Getting the boat and waiting on it to get done.
I get it. I get it.
I remember my question now, what I was going to ask. So, Joe, you mentioned about Lake Horton.
That's my home lake.
That's your home lake. So, have you ever seen the topo map that's floating around?
I was probably I knew about the topo map before anybody.
I was about to say I've got a.
Is there an inside joke?
No. I've got a large.
So there's a lot of history. So, for example, with Lake Horton, I grew up literally walking distance to the lake.
You're talking about the one in Fayetteville, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's south of Fayetteville, near a little town called Woolsey and Brooks. It's like
I know. I've been there. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same place.
We are. So there's a road called Birch Lake Road, and this is why they think this lake was such a good lake. So when the county bought the lake, there used to on Birch Lake Road there were a bunch of ponds. So all these homeowners collectively came together, and they had their own hatchery for the ponds on Birch Lake Road. Well, the county bought the hatchery basically from Birch Lake Road residents, and they flooded those ponds. And you can still go out there and see the old pond dams on your depth finder. And when they did that, like the grass took over, and for years it was just crazy. And they only had one boat ramp on the east side for a long time, and then they made the west boat ramp. And but yeah, there's a ton of little nooks and crannies in Lake Horton. But
I have not been there in years.
Well, I mean, it's sad, but at the same time, I'm interested to see how it goes, because apparently they've closed it off to outside residents unless you buy a yearly pass. Is the only way you can get access to the lakes for Fayette County. And I think the pass is good for a year for non-residents. But if you're a resident, then you can go anytime. But when I was a kid growing up, there was the very first John boat trail I ever fished. They came to Lake Horton. I want to say, I think they were Southern John Boat Anglers or something, I think was the name of them.
Yep.
And I only fished them a handful of times. But anytime they would come to Lake Horton, I'd beg my parents. I'd be like, come on, let me get in on this. I want to see, and you go out there and you're young and you just tinker around just to see if you can compete with these guys. Because back then they had these, these electric outboards like the Briggs and Stratton, and you see these guys cruising down the lake and you're like, wow, that's just so cool. And they had the Ray Marine one. I remember there used to be a couple of guys running those old school like Ray Marine motors. But yeah, Lake Horton, is
that place still full of jackfish?
It is. It's not as bad as it was. The biggest jackfish I ever caught was out of Lake Horton. And I think that's because when they flooded it, there's a Woolsey Creek flows into it, and for years it had been notorious for holding jackfish. But here's something like a little history lesson. I hate to talk about it, but they had to stop construction on Lake Horton when they were building the lake because they found an Indian village at the lake. And I was either Cherokee or Creek, but they ended up stopping construction because they ended up having to bring in archaeologists and everything. It was a big deal, But it was fun because back in the day we used to ride 4-wheelers and build forts and stuff. But now it's like parks and stuff. So
That is
Well,
awesome.
the jackfish is the only reason I even know Lake Horton exists. I was talking to this homeless guy outside of a gas station down at Jackson Lake, and I was like, "Man, I want to go fish for jackfish down in South Georgia again." And he's like, "You ain't gotta go to South Georgia, just go to Lake Horton." And I was like, "I ain't even heard of that before." He's like, "Oh, it's slap full of them." And I really should stop listening to homeless people outside a gas station because the same homeless person told me there was crappie and hard labor, and I still ain't figured that one out yet. But I went to Horton 2 or 3 times.
I've got
And I never caught one.
Oh, they're there.
Crap, yeah.
I'll try to see if I
Hard
can
labor.
find some pictures. I mean, there was one time we were goofing off, going from spot to spot, and I threw a spinner bait on the back of the boat, and one of them just came up and hammered it, and I battled this thing, and I got it up to the boat. It's got those teeth in it that you're scared to touch it because you're like, man, I might come down with all kinds of
You ever ate one?
bacterial infections. So what?
Have you ever ate one?
No, I've talked to some guys fishing on the bank, and because I caught one, and I was gonna give it to them, and they were like, "No, it's got bones, too many bones." They wouldn't touch it. They said
It's one of the best fish I've ever eaten besides crappie, but it's
Is it?
it's got a Y bone that runs down the side,
Did you
and
hear
you got to
that
cut
from
it out.
Did you hear that from a homeless guy or found out?
No, I actually tried it. I didn't catch it. Somebody else had to catch it for me because I ain't very good at fishing.
Okay. Sorry.
Now, do you? I know when I was in Louisiana, they would take gar, which is a real bony fish, but they would cook them in a pressure cooker and make these gar balls.
Yeah, you ain't got to do that with jackfish, but most people get gar wrong anyway. I love cooking gar, but you can make gar balls is the most popular thing to make. But you run a back strap out of them just like you would on a deer. They're just a pain in the butt to clean.
That's
I mean,
But jackfish is the same way. It's got those Y bones that just run straight down the side, and you just cut that section of Y bones. If it's a small fish, sometimes you can just gash the meat with a knife, just kind of make little X's in it and deep fry, and it'll fry those bones up.
Yep.
wow.
Cody's
That's
good.
interesting because I've always just heard you can't eat them because they got too many bones, and and the guys fishing on the bank, they were like, "Nah, we won't touch them. Too many bones." And so
Yeah, it's a real sweet fish. Like I think it's one of the sweetest fishes you can get.
I never knew that.
jack is kind of like our walleye, right? Very it's not like our mud
More
fish.
like a pike, a miniature pike.
Yeah,
Is it
Yeah,
called
it's-
I've always heard it called like a chain. Well, jackfish.
a chain
Yeah,
pickerel is the
chain
actual
pickerel.
scientific
Yeah.
name. It's
Is
a
that
chain
what-
pickerel.
Okay. I was making sure we was on the same thing because I was
Yeah.
in my mind. I was thinking about mudfish or bowfins.
No, it's the northern pike's redneck cousin.
Gotcha,
That's a good way of looking at it.
gotcha.
But they're
Right.
mean and they
Yeah.
fight real hard.
Oh, when they hit, it's crazy. I mean,
They're like little missiles. They hit it and
They
go,
come out
and they
of
take
nowhere,
off.
especially when they're in the grass and you're throwing like a chatterbait. They just come in and just bam.
So I was actually mentioned this. Cody Silvers is saying we eat a lot of them from Burton. There is a bunch of them in Burton. We fish.
Where's Lake Barton at?
Up
It's up
north,
in the mountains.
Oh no, I ain't going there.
it's cold.
It's
It's
Come
too
on,
cold.
we'll go.
It's probably from Lake Blue Ridge, probably another hour or so, hour and a half from it.
Golly, that's like in North Carolina, isn't it?
North Carolina, South Carolina border, pretty
Okay.
close. I wanted to ask y'all
Wow.
this before we take, and I forget this again because it seems like my memory's going pretty slack. So, both of y'all, I want to hear, when was y'all's first introduction into John boat tournaments? What was your first tournament?
5 Alive.
First one to ever fish?
Josh Thompson was getting a group of guys together, and somebody threw my name into the hat and said, "Hey, go fish with these guys." And that's when it started from there. That's when I met a lot of guys within the community. Was through 5 Alive. That's,
But you never did fish with the Southern Outcast guys? You just always went and watched them and stuff?
No, but the only time I fished with them was like whenever they'd show up to Lake Horton, because they only showed up to Lake Horton once or twice. But I was so young at the time, I never traveled So like they would always go to like Lake Varner, for example, you know, those types of lakes because they're more on the east side of town. But that was probably my first introduction. But when I got really serious about like, you know, spending my whole paycheck on fishing, you know, it was with Five Alive.
I am literally watching Chris and I hear ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Yep. Now I can see spinning it on a boat, but not on fishing stuff. I mean, my
Well, you'll
Zebco is
catch
only like $29, and I got some worms, and I got a bunch of chatterbaits. I collect chatterbaits. I don't catch nothing on them, but I love them. They look pretty.
With a Zebco?
Yeah. I actually have a Zebco collection. My granddaddy and my dad collected them for me over the years, and I have Zebcos back from the early 1900s.
Zebco 33.
I've probably got
I got a whole bunch of them.
40 or so.
I gotta get a little display case made and put it up here in the store. It's a pretty cool collection.
That is awesome. David, let's hear about your first.
Yeah,
time.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying
Squirrel.
to think. I want to say it was with Dixie. I
Yep.
think when I was in the Army, I would come home, and my brother's best friend was a big time fisherman, and so I would come home, and just so happened to be he would need a partner or something for it, and I would jump in with him, and then that was just 2 or 3 times a year I would do it, and then I got to Fort Stewart, and there's like 80 lakes or 60 lakes on Fort Stewart, but it's all electric only. So I was like, well, I'll just build me a electric rig and do it that way. And they do little tournaments out there with the Army puts on and whatnot. And then when I got out, I was like, man, I was real torn about buying a brand new bass boat or building another electric rig, like a better electric rig. And just so happens to be that I started looking on Facebook and found no, I take that back. We were doing a benefit tournament at the Tussa Hall in Henry County. Greg Street was putting it on, and Josh Thompson approached me. I was like, hey, man, why don't you come fish with Five Alive? And then that following season, we started fishing with Five Alive, and then now I'm broke.
So I want to go ahead, Chris.
I have questions. I never heard Dixie before. Is that a club?
Used to be.
It was.
It's not anymore. Okay, that's why I hadn't heard of it.
Dixie,
Okay, now where does Five Alive fish?
Well, we mainly fished. Let's see here.
Steel Branch.
Hard Labor, Steel Branch, Varner, Black Shoals,
Juliet,
Lucas. Did we fish Juliet? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No? Yeah, Juliet.
So y'all are all kind of like southeast Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say we're south of I-20.
Yeah, so like
like Sweetwater Creek, we fished that.
Yeah.
That was a fun little lake to fish.
So it ain't a mud hole.
Feet.
It's a mud hole, but it's fun.
I've heard so many negative comments about Sweetwater. So many.
That's funny because I hear a lot of comments about Lake Horton over the years. So I mean, it's like a love-hate relationship because you hear some guys talk about it and they go out there and just hammer them, So some guys, they don't catch anything.
So y'all don't go to any of the reservoirs on the other side, like on the west side of the state or up north?
There's not many on the west side. Steel Branch, as far as I know, is about the farthest. I think there's one down in Columbus.
Goat Rock.
Well, that's not a reservoir. I mean, that's still a big boat, not just
that's still a big
reservoir.
one.
Now we did fish Goat Rock and Harding and West Point on Five Alive, so we didn't mix. That was what drew me to Five Alive was they fished about 2 or 3 big lakes, also and mixed in the reservoirs, in which they fished 2 totally different ways. So I like that, and that was normally the lakes that I did better at was the big lakes.
So why do you think that is?
Go ahead. Because the people, in my opinion, most of the people we were fishing against didn't fish big lakes at all. They all stayed on the reservoir things. So then you throw them in a big lake and it fishes different, or they don't have honey holes already. Like on all these reservoirs, you got your certain spots. They go to big water, and they don't have the spots that they're used to beating up on.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, Merrick. Go ahead. I'm learning all this stuff.
So I want to just pause for a moment. This question's been out there for a little bit, and I haven't got to it. It's the reason why I was wanting to try to get to it. Matt's wanting to ask Chris, the Tiny Toon has a ProNav power drive on it, right? How's that compared
Yes.
to traditional?
From what little I've played with it, and you'll have to take my opinion with a grain of salt because I don't know a whole lot. I've never actually used a lot of spot lock. I've installed more of them than I've ever wanted to see in my life, but I haven't really spent a lot of time with them. It seems about the same. The only thing I noticed different is the lag from the app on your phone versus using a spot lock on a remote. It's like sometimes it's a little faster and sometimes it's a little slower. So just it kind of depends. It's not a big dramatic. It's like milliseconds, but it's like sometimes you can tell it just doesn't respond as fast. I will tell you one thing I did learn about the power drive on that pontoon boat. That is the loudest trolling motor I have ever heard in my entire life. When you hit the pedal or use the remote to turn it, you can probably, I'm deaf and I heard it. So I know that the fish at the next county over heard it because it was like, especially when you got to turn it all the way around. God, that thing is loud. And it could just be because we got that big long shaft one on that pontoon boat. But
And that's not from the ProNav installed on it. That's just the power drive.
no, yeah, all the ProNav does is just makes the power drive get a signal so that it can move. The power drive motor is what's actually loud.
Yeah,
I think it's got a lot to do with the shaft length because it's such a big long shaft.
And it's probably also, if I remember right, the power drive has the components inside of it. Probably hadn't changed much from, because that was the original, one of the first motors, I believe, Minn Kota made for steering like that, like a digital or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's literally in a giant like box container with a gearing and everything to it. And I remember having one.
It's a little smaller now. It's not as big as the old. I've seen the old ones. It's a little bit more compact, but it is loud.
It's a good question there. So let's dive right back into something about. I believe you was going that direction with it, Chris, about southern lakes maybe comparable to mountain lakes. Y'all, you was talking about big lakes, small lakes, the environment, same thing going to Blue Ridge. I want to hear y'all's opinions. Do you feel intimidated? Do you feel comfortable going into it, fishing a lake that's, a lot deeper than you're probably typically used to, or maybe a lot clearer than you're typically used to? Let's hear it from y'all. Whoever wants to go first.
The clearness ain't gonna bother me. I mean, a lot of our reservoirs are pretty clear, so that's not really gonna bug me. Especially like if you get on Still Branch at the right time, it's crystal clear. Juliet, if you can get on it, I mean, I've seen 20 foot down and looked at logs, looking over the graph, and it says we're in 21 foot of water, and I can look down and see the log laying there just perfectly fine. So the clear water, you're going to do it. Now the depth is going to be something for me because, I mean, when I think of deep water fishing, I'm thinking anything over 15 feet. So out there, they talk about shallows 30 feet. And I know like on Lanier and stuff. So that's that's not my forte.
Have you fished in 50 foot, 60?
No. I mean, there's not
in the ocean.
Yeah, I was about to say
unless you
deep
go in the
sea
dead
fishing
center of the
by the
lakes.
oil rigs in the Gulf.
Yeah, there's not.
David
lakes.
knows where I fish. If you get over 6 inches, you could drown.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, his deepest hole he ever fished is about 6 foot.
So hear your side, David. I mean, Joey.
I love the challenge. I love experimenting with new bodies of water just because that's just the way my mind's wired. It's like a chess game to me. So figuring out what kind of move, where I can move this, where I can move that, time of the year. situations, just like to study the lake, not only on the body of water, but, through Google Earth and, just certain things that I like to do. So it's a challenge, but I like the competitiveness of, fishing. That's why I think with the TEC, I mean, you're fishing with guys that are top notch. I mean, I don't know how many other guys have fished this lake on a regular basis, but I mean, you have some real heavy hitters coming into play. But it's fun at the end of the day. I think that's why I love it. And I think that's why everyone does it. It's because it's just the competitiveness and the fun of it.
So if nobody knows it, the reason why Blue Ridge was selected, there was one club that fished it one time or two times maybe since that club was originated. It was Electric Bass Opens. And it's been, I don't remember how many years ago it's been, but not a lot of, knowledge base. They fished it in the summer months. It's the reason why we as all directors sat down and discussed it. We wanted a lake that, wasn't on nobody's schedule, totally different. We hadn't experienced yet. Maybe something we never want to go back to.
Extra challenging.
In February.
Middle of February or the end of February in the mountains. Oh, man.
We understand the conflicts, and we did have a proposed a little bit later on and stuff, and we had some challenges and we had to work around it. So that's the reason why it got bumped to February. But it could very well be a lights out, very serious, big bags brought in. Just depends on the variable. So.
Now, I missed the first part of the live stream. I kind of caught the tail end of this, but did y'all not fish together all year this year?
No. I'm a fill-in.
He's a fill. I fished with a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Cumbie. So I talked to him, and we discussed, and he's like, dude, just let's ride the wave and fish Five Alive. And I don't think he was expecting to finish in the top 5 for Five Alive and then finish in the top 5 of the other club he was fishing. So, and he knows that I'm a laid back individual. So I was like, nah, man, go ahead and fish with Lauren. Cause that's what y'all have been doing all along. And she's always been his original partner. So,
okay.
And I was like,
so you pulled David off the bench and was like, you're in.
Yeah. I filled in on Five Alive.
He filled in on Five Alive because
Yeah,
Jonathan couldn't make it to one of them. So he filled in. Where was it? Lake Juliet was the one that he filled in. And
okay.
And so I told him, I was like, hey, Jonathan was telling me, like, if he finishes in the top 5 and if I was just going to fish it solo, but then, I asked David if he wanted to, and he's like, yeah, man, I want to. So I was like, all right. And
so have y'all gotten to spend a lot of time fishing together?
We have over the years. We have.
Yeah.
Okay. So y'all are somewhat familiar with each other.
Oh yeah. Our style, we really work well together. That's why I've always liked fishing with David.
Now, whose boat are y'all going to fish out of?
That was
David's.
Yeah, he's actually gonna let somebody get in it. I'm surprised.
Hey, I remember fishing in his boat before it had the upgrade.
Yeah.
You should have seen it when he showed up. What tournament was it that he showed up to? I think it was down there at Juliet, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
You had just got it done.
There was one at High Falls he showed up to, and I was like,
Well, we showed up. We're out there in the morning talking to everybody, and people are leaning on it. He's like, hey, that's new turf. Get off that. You're gonna have to step back just a little bit. He didn't even want to take it out for like the first month. He was scared he's gonna hit something or get it dirty.
Yeah,
it is a pretty boat.
It is.
Yeah.
So do you got all electronics and everything hooked up on it now? What are you running?
Yeah, the Garmin set up, but I still don't have forward facing though. Just because, as most people know, yes, I have a beautiful boat, but I also enjoy more fishing out of the back of a boat.
Your boat's really spacious, though. You could be comfortable fishing anywhere on that boat.
Yeah, but see, I'm not a big fan of running the trolling motor. I'd rather sit back and just fish and then let somebody else worry about running the trolling motor.
He sounds like my fishing partner.
Yeah. That's the thing, and I just don't want to. If someone wants to run their boat, like I fished a lot, with Travis. He's just his personality. He wants to run the boat. Look, Travis, just either I'll bring my boat, you can get up there and run it all day, or we can fish out of yours. I really don't care. So, but now it does have a few scratches and bumps on it now because I've actually took it out and crescented it with some scratches. So
it's good for
so it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. Well, that's good that y'all gotten to at least fish together a little bit, so it's not like y'all are, trying this out for the first time.
No, we fished for
TEC.
years. Yeah, we really do well together. Like we feed off each other, and that's what makes us really good when we fish. Because, like you said, we have a system set up where he's just like, "Nah, you take over," and then I'll be like, "No, you take over," and it just works when you have a good partner that knows what you're thinking as far as the boat, mechanics goes. Working together, That's
now, have y'all hooked each other yet?
No, he did fish at High Falls. Was it you that got your partner, or
no? He got himself.
He got himself. Okay.
So I'm gonna knock on some wood right here.
I've
been fishing pretty heavily through my younger days, and when I hit puberty, I kind of slowed down. I was fishing for different things, and then once I got married and combat down, I picked up fishing again, and I've never had one buried below the bar. So I've been hitting the head with 3/4 ounce jigs and sliced my head open. Partners.
Shaky head got me one time with.
But as far as actually getting a hook in me, my beard saved me one day with a big old glide bait with the 3 sets of trebles on it. It literally just hit me in the face and just hung in my beard. I don't know, but I have never been that bad of hooked. Besides just poking myself or something along those lines.
So what is, and I know both y'all tournament fish, you probably have different stories, but what is your absolute worst or most embarrassing tournament moment ever?
That's a tough one.
So me and Travis was fishing at Hard Labor, and Travis swore up and down he had a monster on the line. And Travis, I was doing terrible that day. I think Travis had every fish in the box, so I wasn't helping. Travis swore up and down he had a monster, and it was wrapped around a log, and he swears he still feels it. He did it. And this is early in the season. We're talking about probably about 70-degree water, so not too early, but early. I dove in and swam down, and there was no fish.
He got a tree pounder.
Yeah, I went down about, I'd say about 10 feet, and the only thing I came back up with was his hook in my hand. I said, Travis, there ain't no fish on this thing. So that was probably my most embarrassing, because then, I did it and it wasn't there, and he thought it was the funniest thing. So yeah.
I doubt you'll be doing that at Blue Ridge.
Yeah, not in February. No. If you catch me in the middle of summer, I'll do it. But yeah, not in. I literally jumped out of the boat and held onto the boat for like 30 seconds just to catch my breath. It was it took it away from me. But after that, I guess I was good at the Polar Ice Challenge, so I went on down, and I was probably in the water for probably 5 or 7 minutes swimming around. So
that's awesome.
I don't know if it was awesome. It was.
That's dedication right there.
Yeah, it was a good idea at the time, but it definitely didn't play out too well.
I bet Travis felt bad.
No, he did not. Not at all.
You don't know Travis very well. He probably smiled about it for a week.
Oh, at least, and told everybody that he ran into.
Joey, let's hear yours. You got one?
Well, I have a couple of them. Well, the first one, Travis is involved. Too bad. I hope he's watching this. David was there. It didn't happen on the water. It happened at the boat ramp. So we were running late for a tournament at West Point, and I didn't put gas in the truck. And so I was like, we got it. We're running late. We're going to get there. They're going to be blasting off, and we're not going to be able to. So we got there. I loaded the boat. My partner, we went out. We fished the whole day. Well, when I went to go hook the boat back up, I ran out of gas at the boat dock. So Travis pulled me out, or David, one of the two pulled me out.
It was Paul.
Paul.
He was in my truck.
Yeah. Paul pulled us out and then took me to the gas station. But they ripped on me for years about that one. But we were in such a hurry to get to the lake, because we were already running behind. I was like, I'll just get it afterwards. And the night before always fill up. That it took that one time to actually be like, don't do that again, Joey.
I want to bust Joey real quick. Well, look, anybody ever gets behind Joey going to the lake, find you a spot to pass. Joey Pawpaws. I don't know how he ran out of fuel. He shouldn't burn any fuel the way the I mean, that truck's probably never seen over 2,500 RPMs.
My fiance rips me all the time about it. She's just like, why do you drive so slow? She's like, the speed limit's 55 and you're going 50. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to get a ticket. She's like, they're going to give you a ticket for going slow.
He gets in the truck with me, and oh well.
You got a lead foot.
Yeah, let's just get there.
And then another time, I don't know if David was there for this one. So I was backing a buddy of ours' boat into the water at a tournament, and he unhooked the boat from the trailer, and the boat skidded off the trailer onto the ramp.
That was Houston.
Yeah, that was another. That was a funny time. And then, but we got the crazy part is the boat had a hole in it, but he had some of that Flex Seal stuff, and he just like duct taped that stuff and put it in there and sprayed it, and we fished the whole day.
That stuff will save you in an emergency.
It really did.
Some of the stuff we have done to the boats over the years. Oh my gosh. So I do want to add the disclosure out there at Blue Ridge. Nobody, and I mean this, nobody should unhook their boat before they get down to the water.
Correct.
That ramp is super steep. So just know that, like, you think in your mind, if you ain't been there, imagine the steepest boat ramp you ever put in on. It's going to be steeper. So letting everybody know that in advance.
I think that should be put out there because, tournament morning, everyone's mind's in so many different places. And,
do I need to get there early and do a safety briefing?
You would definitely not be the one to do the safety.
You might have to.
Just as long as you bring your unicorn outfit.
Bring the unicorn.
Coffee first, safety's always third.
Yeah.
We're actually going to plan so that way all the anglers that are qualified for the TEC, so that way they kind of know this. I'm going to try to put together a private listing video live just for all of the participants, and we're going to go over all of guidelines. Shouldn't take very long. If anybody's got questions or anything like that, they can comment on it and stuff, but we're going to do like a private live for everybody. So that'll be coming soon. So being we're now getting within close to a month, almost and a half away from our TEC event, let's hear y'all's winning weight predictions. What do y'all think it's going to take to win? Without seeing the lake, knowing it, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, I have no clue. I mean, I'm guessing it's going to fish something like a Lanier would. I mean, that's one thing I can really compare it to. So I'm thinking if they're on, they're on. If they're not, they're not. But if they're on, mid to upper teens.
Yeah, I'm thinking 18, 19 pounds.
And then if they're not on, it could, they can shut down up there, and they could be one, but with 5 12-inch fish. It's what I've gathered.
Yeah, Michael's saying the same thing. Going to take about 18 pounds to win.
Yeah, 18, 19.
It just depends on my opinion for largemouth if they come into play. Depends on a lot of variables. But you know, I've seen it different ways. I've seen over the years in the past. There's a minute ago, Chris, when I was sitting there and I was looking down, I was actually looking something up that I remember, but I was just wanted to look at it. So Blue Ridge is unique. It actually has a no size limit on largemouth. You can pull it up on the E-Regs. That's actually what I pulled up and looked at. Largemouth bass, 12 inches statewide, except for Lake Blue Ridge, no minimum. Which I think is kind of odd why they would do that for largemouth. But no matter what, when we go to this event for the TC, our rules state 12-inch minimum fish. It's going to be largemouth, spotted bass, and smallmouth. Obviously, if there's a meanmouth, it's a bass.
Or a catfish that identifies as a bass.
Negative, Ghost Rider.
That's why I'm getting in this tournament next year. I'm going to win.
Now, I do have a question. Have there ever been double digits called out of Lake Blue Ridge for largemouth, or are they mostly just?
Oh, you talking about just in general?
In general, like the history of the lake, have there double digits ever been?
He's going to look up the lake record.
No. I've actually got.
I'm just curious to know how many. Like, you know, some of these lakes we fish. You hear guys within the last couple of years being like, yeah, you caught 112 this year, you caught 110, you know.
I've got to go through all my notes and find it.
Well, while you're looking at that, I got fishing questions.
Go ahead.
Oh God.
All right, so that lake, from what I'm understanding from listening to people being interviewed over the last couple of weeks, it stays cooler naturally because of its location throughout the year. So it doesn't get, 80 something degrees during the summer, right?
Yeah, I believe I've always heard of guys going and trout fishing, like behind the dam over there. Like a lot of guys, a lot of these fly fishermen, that's where they go.
So my fishing question is, from somebody like me who's used to fishing a lake that is 80 degrees in the summer and 50 in the winter, does it affect the fish being on and off and the bite being on and off with the temperature being such a big difference up there? Is there like a temperature where they just shut down, or?
I don't know. You're talking to Southern boys over here, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, you figure with like a cold front moving in, if it does drop the water temperature, that some of them would get lockjaw.
Chris, I hate to even speak on it, but technically I would say no. Cold fronts probably. It would probably thump a largemouth in the head worse, but being that those strand of largemouth up there are a little bit different, they can withstand it a little bit better. It ain't like the southern strain of largemouths. It won't affect the spotted bass at all. If anything, it'll probably help them. I think, and I really, really hate to even say this, but one of the biggest things that is going to be the biggest factor on that lake, I know without a shadow of a doubt, is that is a hydroelectric dam. So they generate power from there. So one of your biggest factors, too, is the bite going to be on or off, is based on their generating schedule completely. I mean,
how much does it heat the water up when they're running power?
That you don't think of it like that, because it's not like a coal plant where they put water back in or anything. So basically, it's Carter's Lake. We was talking about it earlier. Carter's Lake's one of the most produced electricity around in this region. They literally let the water through the pipe system, hits the generators, and it produces the power, and it literally flows out. So it's not used for cooling at all. Exactly. They're not putting it back. Now, if the water, say for example, you get more of an effect in the summer months, but with all state, federal guidelines, it's more federal guidelines of they can't technically release water. So like at Blue Ridge and Carter's, you got deeper depths of the towers that pulls water from surface temp down to 50 to 100 to they can pull it at different depths to get different temperatures so they can try to match the outflow, because if they decrease the temperature outflow, it could cause some problems in the ecosystem downstream and stuff like that. So I I wouldn't look at it as the temperature variable. It's more of it's movement of water.
Moving, yeah.
So I couldn't find it. I've wrote it down. It's in my notepad at my office. I want to say the lake record for Blue Ridge is 12 pounds, if I remember right, for largemouth. There's a lot of big largemouths. I mean, it is. I'm going to tell you right now, I would not be surprised if they was at least an 8-pounder come into the scale, at least. I've got all the lake records. So conversations I had with DNR before we started the planning with this and stuff, we decided we was going to go there. I actually talked with one of the administrators through Georgia DNR.
Here it is. The record largemouth is 11 pounds, 10 ounces.
11, 10, almost 12.
That's 12.
They got walleye up there? Huh? 9 pounds, 4 ounces.
Bukus of walleyes. There's more walleyes in that lake than a lot.
Hold on. God dang, I got a lot of fish up in this thing.
That's actually one of the most unique lakes too. You'll see it. Muskie used to be in that lake years ago.
The record muskie was 38 pounds.
So are they completely gone? Or
They're
just
gone.
very-
They're gone. Muskies are gone. That was back in 1970 something, I think, was that record.
So the record smallmouth is 6 pounds, 14 ounces, and the record spotted bass is 6 pounds, 4 ounces.
So there's some good spots.
And that was from 2017.
Yeah.
So y'all
And
haven't
the record largemouth was from 05.
So y'all haven't watched the live. So let me go ahead and tell y'all this is the reasoning factor why we decided to choose Blue Ridge. And then I had a conversation afterwards that we found out otherwise. So Blue Ridge used to be predominant smallmouth and largemouth. That was it. You go up there, you catch smallmouth, and then a certain area of the lake, you go catch largemouth. That's just what would happen. Spotted bass got introduced, and it went downhill. Smallmouth just literally disappeared. Well, back 7-8 years ago, I know the guys that used to go out with the shock boats in this entire region up here. And they told me that they were multiple state record, not lake, but state record spotted bass swimming in that lake that they physically laid eyes on. There was a lot of them. And there was actually a bacterial growth that came into the lake. I want to say he told me it was about 6 years ago, and the spotted bass have declined since. But it's kind of leveling itself back out, which, I mean, what I've seen up there, do I think there's going to be some 5 pounds spots come into scales? Yes. I don't think you're going to see a 15-pound bag, or I mean a 18-pound bag of all spots, in my opinion. I don't. But there is a lot of trout in that lake, a lot of trout, because they stock it up there. So Matt's got a question. Are you guys fishing northern strain or Florida strain largemouth? So I'm pretty sure it's just a northern strain that's in Lake Blue Ridge for the TEC event. But correct me if I'm right, David, Joey, y'all's lakes down around that area, y'all probably got some Florida strain largemouths in.
We do. We got the tiger bass.
Yeah.
So that's predominant.
I learn something every time I get on one of these live streams. I didn't even know there was a difference.
So the Tigers is
There's
the
the
one.
F1 and F2.
Yep. Tigers is the one they introduced into hard labor, correct?
Yeah, but I don't think they reproduce. I think when they breed back out, I think they lose that F1, F2, so they'll breed themselves back out. The way I understand it, I could be wrong on that, but what I've read on them, you can breed out of it. So yeah, that's what they stocked it with, and that's why I feel we had some really big weights, or hard labor really shined the first few years, and it's starting to slow down. Is because I think all those really nice ones are either getting really smart or getting gone.
What's the difference in the two strains?
The genetics of the feed.
Well, y'all sitting here talking about it like y'all's a bunch of scientists.
hey.
Are y'all got the Florida strain or the Illinois strain or the Mississippi strain?
So
Well, the Florida
one
strain,
is
they
more
grow
for warmer
faster.
water.
That's what I've always heard is they have a really big appetite. So if you look at it, and they look like footballs, like they're just like little, they just get big, and they get big fast.
Mm-hmm.
And their appetite is I mean, it's like a spotted bass. They eat anything when it comes by that's,
They're more aggressive.
It's very aggressive. That's probably the best word.
Yeah. And also, I believe the Florida strain and everything, since they're normally predominantly in warmer water, you can get to some lakes will have two different bedding spawning seasons on some of the lakes, especially the farther you go south. Because right now, the bass in Florida are on bed. Normally about mid-January is when they start going on bed. So that's and then we'll trickle in. They'll start around down here end of February through March, and then you'll find them all the way out in onesies and twosies all the way to late April, early May, and then the northern strand it's built for cold water. So that's like you said, it won't really affect them that much because just that strand, it's kind of like a husky in the snow. He don't really care that he's running around in snow, but then you put a husky down in Florida, and now he's about to die. Or you take just a normal, lab and put him in Alaska, he ain't gonna do as good as a husky would.
So looking at it online here, it talks about Florida strain largemouth have a higher winter mortality rate when compared to northern or native largemouth. So obviously that Florida strand, they're used to that warmer climate, the cold, and you've probably heard a lot of people talk about it. A cold front flows into Florida, like what just happened with that Arctic blast that came down. Those fish, I guarantee you, if you went to Florida and tried to fish during that cold front, it was probably very miserable down there because they don't get that active with it when it's that cold. But these northern strain or crossbreeds, like you kind of mentioned, David, what happens, it just loses their genetics over time. They have to adapt. It's a good question.
I'm learning a lot.
Then Matt's got one more with it that I think is going to be an interesting topic that probably has not been discussed on any of our Hooked Up Lives yet. With Blue Ridge, with the TEC event coming, there is trout in that lake. So if any of y'all two anglers thought about throwing big swim baits or even glide baits for this tournament coming up, or just in general, or just don't want to say nothing.
Plead the fifth.
Yeah, I thought about it.
It's definitely crossed my mind. So, I'm bringing a few rods, so I wouldn't be surprised if I have one tied on.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those tournaments to where fish can be up on the bank or fish could be 75 foot deep. It's gonna be the luck of the draw wherever you go.
Yep, that's
a dedicated angler. When you get into swim bait fishing and glide bait fishing, correct me if I'm right, guys, just take away from the tournament itself. But are y'all those type anglers where you commit? Have you ever committed to that? Like seeing them people throwing them and stuff. Have y'all committed and just said, I'm going to learn this and do it?
I have. I've picked up I've gone to Lake Horton on multiple occasions, and that's all I have. I don't bring anything else, and that's all I do. And you have to physically, it's like David will tell you, it's like drop shot. When you go finesse tactics, it's sticking to that one finesse and figuring it out, practice.
I just can't do it. I'll be honest with you. I cannot sit there on that just because I know what I'm fishing for is only a hand. If you go out there and catch two good fish on the glide bait or a big swim bait, that's a successful trip. Now you're probably going to have 2 5-6 pounders plus, but at the end of the day, I think I'd rather catch a bunch of 3 pounders. And then during a tournament, it's just so hard to commit to catching that one big bite on that big bait. So,
why are those things so big?
Because they're mimicking bait fish that are that big to get big fish to bite them.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I've
what
never seen a shad that was 4 foot long like some of these swim baits I've seen. They are massive.
they are. And
The
and you want
action
to talk about really spending a paycheck. I mean,
Yeah.
some of these jokers will
Well
cost
over
you upwards of $500,000-$800,000 for one swim bait. It's
Yeah.
California is where it, I think, really caught on, because that's where those guys, they throw like those ones that are like trout and stuff, and
And they're huge.
they're huge.
I mean, you're looking at 8 to 14 inches.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
My-
here in Georgia, there's a guy by the name, you've heard of him, Mike Bucca. You know, he created the bull shad, you know, and that's been like, once that really caught on, man, guys were buying those, and those aren't cheap, you know.
But they're not
Yeah.
expensive as the rest of them.
But but as far as, like you said, not
So-
like some of these other custom ones.
A lot of the glide baits, like mimicking bait, you've got predominantly southern. Well, there's a couple of lakes up in the northern region that have them, but gizzard shad get. I mean, dude, they can grow. Oh my gosh, I don't know, being exaggerative or not. 2 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, gizzard shad. Yeah, but the stuff that we have down here.
We got
So-
gizzards.
We have some. I've seen some gizzard shad caught.
Yeah.
Biggins.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's where those glide bait techniques come in, and I mean, you can search the web and see them throwing those glide baits. It's phenomenal. I even I don't want to leak where or what or anything like that, but I went yesterday, and I stuck and committed at least 2 hours throwing a trout swim bait about that long and forward facing sonar and watching. I couldn't tell you how many, I can't count on my hands and toes how many giant fish I seen literally come up, just tailing it the whole way, and come all the way to the boat and never would open their mouth. I'm talking a bunch of times. So it's a commitment.
Too much. He's saying too much.
But it's a commitment. You have to commit to doing swim baits, and it's tough. It really, really is tough to sticking with it. So it's a good question there. I think that could be a good factor to play.
Another one good up there with the same profile would be perch. Yeah, perch color, because that thing's full of yellow perch.
And probably more so perch than trout. I know that there's a guide up there. He goes, you see pictures on it on social media, catching trout, walleye, perch. I don't know if y'all have heard this or not, but they stock upriver for trout on that river and below the dam. But they actually are, I believe, going to change and start stocking Lake Blue Ridge itself of trout. That is going to happen, I do believe, this year, from what I have read.
Yeah, but I wonder if they took into account the forage. I mean, you got in that lake, you're going to have yellow perch, which predominantly is a hunter. You're going to have crappie, bass, spots, smallies,
Walleye.
walleye, whatever toothy creatures y'all were talking about. I mean, that's a lot of forage in one lake, you know, chasing after the same forage.
If they're going to do the same thing, what I'm thinking, a lot of the other, like, I'm going to say the Georgia Power mountain lakes, you got Seed, Burton, Yona, those different ones that's along through there. They've all got blueback carrying in them, and they had a lot of problems with blueback carrying. It's the same thing at Blue Ridge. Blueback carrying was illegally introduced to it. They had a lot of problems with it. They introduced the walleye, trying to take and minimize the blueback carrying. I believe they've probably seen that it has not. So one of the best things that I've heard DNR do, they actually put brown trout in a lake, which actually helps to reducing the blueback herring population.
Now, what's wrong with the herring population? What's bad about them?
You know,
I know they get big quick.
From what I've heard, herring takes and kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it's rumor or whatever, but from what I've heard from everybody is they're nest raiders. They come in, when fish are spawning, and they'll come in and eat the eggs of the fry of the other fish, and then it just, tears the lake's ecosystem up. And
I didn't know that.
that's what I've heard, but I don't know.
But so does brim.
Did what?
Brim will do the same thing if they can get in there.
Yeah, it's just not been popular they wasn't here before. They've seen declines of things, but I mean, I don't know.
You take Lanier, and that's what made Lanier get on the map.
See, and I have different opinions. I'm not a biologist in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but I have my different opinions. So I'm gonna pause just for a moment. I know we've been going down a rabbit hole for a lot of different things now, but if you got any questions, feel free to fire them away. We've been going for nearly an hour and a half. I don't want to keep these men more like too late in the night talking, being we probably all got to go to work and do our jobs, and Chris has got to build dreams one after another, right?
I've been building one all week.
Well,
we're having a little breakthrough with e-propulsion this week.
That's awesome. Well, let's hear what you're building right now.
Well, I'll kind of show you. All right, so you see that thing off the side of there, right there? That is the first ever functional Panther steer on an e-propulsion Navy motor.
That is awesome.
This guy spent 2 weeks trying to figure out how to make it work.
And that's a T4 system, right?
Yes, it is.
So for people that's not familiar with it, the Panther is actually an electric steering system. So you've got, I'm assuming the wire going down, that's where the actual wireless remote or wired remote goes to.
That goes down to the relay system that you would mount, wherever you want inside your boat under a hatch. And then you've actually got the wired remote that plugs into the other side of the relay and comes out to here.
It's about what, 16 foot of wire that you
It's long. Yeah, it's about 15, 16 foot. And then we've also got the wireless remote for them too. And we're going, so what I had to do to make this work is I had to make some custom parts for it to work on an e-propulsion motor. That's why nobody's ever gotten it to work, because it's not a bolt-on. So I figured out what custom parts we need to make, and I've started manufacturing them this week. So I'm hoping next week we'll have it ready to go as a kit to sell, to where if you got a Navy 3 or Navy 6 Evo, we can just sell you the kit and it'll be 100% bolt-on. We've already done all the hard part for you. So, but I got to do the instructional video and little instruction manual and all that kind of stuff. But it took 2 weeks of fiddling with to figure out how to make it work and what, how much turning radius I could get out of it was the biggest thing.
You able to tell us pricing on the Panther steer?
I am not 100% sure on it yet, because the ones that I got are the saltwater version. They're the better quality ones, got the all stainless hardware. Other ones I've got don't have any electronics with them. They have the hold on one second.
Yeah, I was about to say you must be getting a call or something.
The other ones that we got in are the kits that don't have the electronics, and they're meant to run with the wireless controller. So I got to sit down and do all the pricing on all that stuff. But hopefully by next week I'll have it.
That's cool.
Where's your shop located?
He was asking where your shop's located. Oh, he can't hear his Bluetooth. It's swapped to the device. I heard the difference. Let him get connected. You able to hear us, Chris? You got you're muted. Look at them working knuckles, boy.
Can you hear me now?
Unfortunately.
I don't know what happened. Ryan was calling me. I don't know why. He knows I'm in here doing a show. And for whatever reason, when he called, my Bluetooth cut out, and I'm just sitting here talking to myself, and no one can hear me.
It's all right.
Where's the shop located? Tell everybody.
In Oxford, right off of Highway 138. If you know how to use the Google, just Google search TBN, and before you can type the whole word Southeast will pop up.
It's really easy to find. It's literally like 2 turns off the interstate.
If you get lost, you can just call. We'll get Ryan to go stand on the side of the road and wave you down.
That's awesome. So Matt was saying blueback herrings are highly competitive for food. Yes. They are it ain't like thread fins where they just sit around. They're very, very nomadic. Bluebacks are very nomadic. That's awesome. So, Chris, you got any more questions for these men?
Oh yeah, I do have one I've been asking everybody. As tournament and bass fishing guys, what would you like to see the aftermarket produce to make your life easy as a tournament fisherman? Is there any products out there that don't exist that you're like, man, I wish somebody made XYZ?
That's a tough one.
That's what everybody says.
I'm gonna have to ponder that and then get back to you. I'll call your shop because it'll occur to me at like when I'm driving down the road. Usually, I'll be like, "Oh, that's what I should have had."
How about this? Think about it for a second. Let Chris answer this question while you are thinking about it. So Matt's asking, does the Panther steering include a throttle control?
No, it does not. The Navy Evos, you get to choose which throttle control you want with it. So when you buy the motor, you're just buying the motor, and then you pick whichever throttle system you want. You can get either a tiller, you can get what they call a topside throttle control, which looks a lot like the ones you would see on a center console boat. And then they have side mount, which is very similar to what you would see in like a bass boat that's mounted on the side. So you got 3 different options for throttle controls.
Panther is just for steering only.
Yes, just steering only.
Yep. And they're very, very smooth, very quiet. I've got one on my boat. It's very, very quiet.
Everybody seems to love them, just nobody's been able to figure out how to make them run on e-propulsion. When we actually got them into the store and were starting to sell them on the website for other motors, and I actually called e-propulsion and said, hey, have y'all ever done one of these before? I want to try to figure it out. And they were like, good luck. See you later. Let us know how it goes.
So you were the research and development team.
I did. Well, I kind of took it as a personal challenge after they laughed at me.
You already got the patent out on it, right?
Yeah.
Well, at one point, they had a demo electric steer. E-Propulsion did, but it never made it. I don't know if they just kept running into problems, but it never.
From what they told me, because I did ask for their advice on it, and they said that they ended up settling on recommending the C-Sense version of the electric steer, but they had over time, they had a lot of customer complaints about it with the e-propulsion motor. It wasn't that it was a bad steering system, it just didn't work good with the e-propulsion. And a lot of people that run like the Elcos and some of the other brands out there, they absolutely love the Panther steer, and I very rarely hear anything going wrong with them. So that's why we brought them in. And then when I found out because I didn't know that they didn't work with e-propulsion. And then we found out that it, 100% for sure would not work unless we modified it. And I was like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to make this bolt-on, because not everybody's going to want to, bust out a drill and a Sawzall on a brand new electric outboard and a brand new electric steering system. So I was like, we got to figure out how to make it bolt-on so that anybody can buy it. And that was the challenging part.
That is awesome. So have y'all thought about anything interesting stuff, concepts for Chris's question?
Yeah, I would. I do have something. I
want
a foldable rod storage. So I wanted to be able to flip it out on the side of the boat so it's out of the way. But at any time, flip it back inside the boat, like if I'm trying to net a fish or something along those lines. So basically, it'll just flip out and they'll be off the boat. You see them, I know like the guys that run like the 16-foot crappie poles, they'll run something off their boat all the way up the side, but it's fixed. So, but I want to.
They run the ones that are like in a T-track almost, and then it's got like a bunch of little rod holders on the side.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, but I wanted somehow to fold it back in the boat. So like, say you're getting up in a tight area, you're around docks, you're around trees or stumps, or you don't want them over the edge. When you're out in open water, you can just have them out and,
So basically something to hold them up off the deck so you can walk around, but then when you get into a tight space, you can fold them back down and they would sit back down on top of the deck.
I would like them to go completely on the other side of the gunnel.
Okay.
So come in the boat and then out the boat.
When you're saying in the boat, you mean in a compartment sealed
or just on the deck?
No, it'd be too long.
Yeah, just flip them inside of your gunnel. Then you can flip them outside the gunnel.
Okay.
That's a simple do.
Okay.
Chris, you can get that done next week, right?
Well, it's funny he brought that up. I'm actually one of the other things that I've been working on the last couple of weeks is we're trying to find some better solutions for rod storage inside of rod lockers. I've never been impressed with rod tubes, and they're also a pain in the butt to install, and they get really, really expensive because of how much work goes into them. It's cheap to buy. Well, PVC used to be cheap, but it's expensive now, but the parts are cheap, but the actual labor that goes into it is a lot. So I put a lot of thought and effort into coming up with some new products that would make organizing your rod locker a little bit more easy. I've got an aluminum version that I'm waiting on the CNC guys to finish cutting so I can weld them up. And then I just started making a plastic version that's going to be a little bit more economical. But I can't wait to get those out and actually test them on some bigger rod lockers and see how they work.
But Chris,
That's something that's been in my head for a while. I hate rod lockers where everybody's got stuff piled in there.
yeah, but coming from like big boats, the first thing you do when you buy a new boat is pull the rod tubes out. They're all removable, and then you just throw them all down in there, and that way you can fit, 20, 30 rods inside of a full-size rod locker.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, how else are you going to be able to, you start organizing them, it's less rods you can put in there.
I think I got a solution to that.
I would say a higher percentage of tournament anglers are probably not, and I hate to use the analogy, but as meticulous as Aaron Martin's was with a lot of his stuff, we're more of throw it in there, get in there, cram it in as much as you can type deal. At least I am with my rod.
Later.
I'll
worry about that later.
If you could develop something for, I know this sounds crazy, but the net, like, we always have the net, like, it's in the boat, but it's always scattered all over the place, and you never know. You get, you want a prime example? So, fished the tournament, Hard Labor Creek. I had a good one on the line, right? Well, my partner went to grab the net. He ended up hooking one of his lures with the net. And that's happened on more than one occasion of like where you place the net on the boat. If you could have some kind of solution to where it would just, the kinetics would flow better to where, because
would something like a vertical net holder that you could mount anywhere, or does it got to be flat?
It has to be flat, because knowing me, I'm going to be casting. I'm still gonna hit it. There needs to be something to where it's, one, easy access to grab it, and two, that you don't I don't know, take on the rest of your tackle with it when you go to try to net a fish. I guarantee you, everybody in this chat has run into that situation at some point in their fishing career. Okay. Because I've done it way more than once.
David probably don't have this problem because he's got probably the largest lid in Georgia compartment. But like, for example, on my boat, I don't have a giant net. Mine's one of the smaller rubber. It's not a real deep net, it's probably 10 inches, 12 inches, maybe a little bit deeper than that. Normal, circumference wise, not very big. I've only got literally one compartment that it can fit in. And because my battery's in the back, it really does not fit back there. You can't even, if I put it in there, it takes me 5 minutes just to get it out. Like, there's nowhere to put it. Like, you can set it on the deck, you'll trip over it and everything else. You can't have it hanging out the sides, because if you catch a fish, then you don't want to, oh my gosh, I hung in the net. You know what I mean? Like, the only thing I could think of in my mind, like on my boat setup, would be cool to either have some way that it could just slide down, kind of like sideways.
Yeah.
Down. You done that?
Almost like make a small pocket for it. The best place to be would like up against the gunnel on the, like, not the front of the boat, but like the side going up towards the front where you would normally put your rods and stuff at. There's enough straight area where you could put like a little 3 or 4 inch, but the only thing sucks is like your boat would have to be built around that. Aftermarket wise is the hard part. I could build a boat with that where you could just slide it in and your net would disappear.
But you want to hear the crazy part is I have buddies that have these bass boats that they're spending probably $80,000-$90,000 on, and they're still driving down the lake with like the net, inside, like they're basically holding on to the net. I mean, it's not just it's across the board that I see this, and I've always thought about it, and I've been like, there's got to be a better solution, but it just drives me crazy.
I mean, I've been in new Tritons, I've been in new Camises, new Nitros, and they all go behind the seat. So, like, behind the driver and passenger seat, there will be about a 3-inch gap that is designed to have straps. So, as you walk onto the back deck, all you're doing is stepping over the just the shaft of it.
The only simple solution I could think of would be, and I say if it's wrong, most of the guys that's running like electric outboards, the only space, if you don't want to go interior of a boat, say if you're wanting it to extend beyond a boat somewhat, only place I could think would be putting it at the transom, somewhere next to the motor. Make the net part to where it's hanging out, maybe a portion of it coming in, just like a little bracket mount or something. Let it overhang. If there's any place that you want it to extrude exterior that won't be in the way as much, might be something like that.
But then it's real far away from the front guy.
It is.
So then you got to run back to the back guy to help him net a fish. You got to go past him to get it. I mean, there's really no good spot for a net. Just outlaw nets. Everybody got a boat flip.
I love it. I love that rule.
Maybe y'all were just thinking about it wrong. Maybe we need to redesign the net.
That was my next.
It needs like a pocket holster, and you pull it out and pull the trigger, and it goes and it pops out real quick.
Blow up net. But hey, no joke. How many times do you see boats going down the lake? A lot of the guys do this. They'll have the net where on top of the seat, dangling down, driving down the road.
All the time.
But you'll never lose it that way.
No.
You lay it in the bottom of the boat, it'll take flight.
All right, so here's a comment Matt said. Maybe a spring-loaded net where the net rolls up into the handle and collapses down. Same concept what you just said, Chris.
Yeah, you redesign the net.
Redesign the net.
Just one big tube, and then you hit the button, and it just shoots out like a net gun.
Bottom of the boat.
I mean, it depends on your boat layout for the bottom of the boat. I mean,
depends on your net.
Well, Merrick, your boat, how long is your cockpit in your boat? Like front to back? It's what, 3 or 4 feet?
I don't remember the dimensions of it, but I know it was
is it long enough to fit a net in?
It was 3 ribs.
So, like, in my mind, I'm not a tournament fisher, so I don't know, but like if they had some way to mount it to the side of the cockpit, that would be halfway between the front and the back, and it would be out of the way. But you'd lose that cockpit wall. You wouldn't be able to use it for anything.
It is, but the crazy part is like when you're, especially when one of you guys has got a big fish on the line and you instantly go to grab that net. It doesn't matter who's grabbing it. It just seems like stuff just always seems to happen. It gets tangled. It just something always, and then you're just like standing there like, well, okay, well,
Here
all right,
we go.
I guess today's not my day, but you're just like grabbing stuff. I mean, I've almost lost rods from doing it. I mean, it's.
I'm gonna have to do some more thinking on this. This is not one I was prepared for.
I know I'm weird, man. I'm pretty eclectic as it is, but I'm like, this is just driving me crazy. I'm like, I hate to say this. I feel like we're trying to reinvent the wheel, but
it sounds like that's what needs to happen because you need a net that's big enough to put your fish in, and there's really nowhere to put it in a smaller tournament rig.
Notice this. I guarantee I would like to see when the TEC happens, how many guys have these nets. Just look at.
Oh, I'm going to be walking around taking pictures of nets all day long.
So we're going to have everybody stand up there at the road. It's going to be checking the live wells, and they're going to be like, "Where's your net at?"
Safety net inspection. Everybody line up at the boat ramp.
You're going to remember this conversation. You're going to be like, man.
Well, this is how, we come up with ideas is by asking people and talking to people. That's how I came up with the idea for the trying to do something different with rod instead of rod tubes and finding some other way to store rods in the rod locker. I know not everybody's going to like it, but there's people out there that want it. But I would have never known that if nobody would have told me. That's why I have to ask.
do me a favor. Don't ask me when we come into the parking lot, because it'll take me 5 minutes and it'll slow us up even more if we have to ask everybody, get your net out and show me where it's at. Like, oh my gosh. Are you
I'm
serious?
just going to be walking around snooping.
I love it. That was awesome. Awesome concepts. But David, your suggestion, dude, that's probably one of the most interesting things I've thought, like eliminate the nets.
I don't agree with it at all because I'm a finesse fisherman. So trying to boat flip a fish with 8-pound or 6-pound test isn't very fun. So yeah, I said it, but I don't like it.
But it would be a cool concept, though, to just take that factor away. You're going to have to lay hands on every one of them.
I mean, that's what bass does.
I like that. Never really thunk that before, so love it.
Autumn. Well, let me tell you. Let's not have a winter lake in the mountain lake in the middle of the winter. Maybe that'll get us off of that next year.
It was going to be early spring. It was.
Hey, I'm just a southern boy, and I don't like the cold.
So Ron's right.
Like a snowman.
Yeah, Ron's right on this. They do have, or used to have, I remember seeing it, the collapsible nets. You store in like a sleeve, like an umbrella. I do remember seeing it.
I saw those. They look kind of gimmicky, though.
Yeah, but I hate to say this, I ran into more problems with those than I did with the big hoop nets. And I know that sounds crazy, but that to me, it wasn't efficient. It's probably the best way I can, for me.
You probably look at 90% of the guys that's tournament fishing in the state of Georgia coming to the TC, they're probably going to have the silver pole with the little spring on it clip that you pop out, and it's the cheapest and simplest, easiest one out there to buy.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what they're going to go with. Man, never knew.
Good ideas, boys.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on the whole net subject, but
no, it's a great idea. Something I never thought of.
You got anything else, Chris? Any good topics there to run down?
No, that's why I like to ask everybody that question is what would they like to see? Because I never know. Like when we started our boat shop, one of the things that Nate told us was like there's a severe need for somebody to make custom electrical panels. At the time, acrylic was starting to become very popular, but everybody that made acrylic custom electrical panels was months and months and months backed up, and they were getting ridiculously expensive. They're like, we need an economical solution that looks cool, but is also really functional. So that's when we came up with our aluminum electrical panel and decided to start hydro dipping. I'm like, okay, well, it's cool. It's a lot cheaper than these acrylic ones, and we can pump them out really fast. So that's how I get ideas, is from talking to guys, because I don't fish very often. I don't know none of this stuff.
Chris, you still hydro dipping?
Somewhat. We're setting everything up in the back shop, but we're having to rerun the entire backside of the building's electricity to get all of my equipment hooked back up. That's why it's not up and running right now.
All right, I got a few pieces to drop off.
Well, you're gonna have to wait. Because electrical wire that's that big around is not cheap right now.
No.
And we got to run it. I think it's like 90 something feet up the wall, across the shop, back down the other side, and drop in a new panel.
Shoot, y'all run electrical all day long. What you talking about?
Well, we did it. We did the compressor. We ran it from the panel up the ceiling outside. I think it was only like a 65 or 70 foot run, but that took all day just to get that compressor hooked up. So, and I still got to run the air lines from the compressor into the building. I think it's about 50 or 60 feet across the building and back down the wall to where all my hydro dipping stuff's going to be at. But yeah.
Awesome. So I got a question for both y'all men that I've not really asked any of our interviewers yet so far this year, but I'll start with you, David, first. What's the TEC mean to you?
Man, the TEC is just in our small little niche of electric fishing in Georgia. It's just, you're going against the best of the entire state. That's basically it. It's just see how you stack up against the state. And most of the time on unfamiliar bodies of water. I mean, hard labors is really the only one we've done it on that I was even familiar with. I mean, Juliet's in my backyard. It's only 30 minutes down the road, but I never go to it. I got a real big love-hate relationship for that lake, so I definitely don't just wake up and say, oh, I'm going to go there today. But that's pretty much it to me, just to see how I stack up against pretty much the best of the best in our small niche of fishing.
And I know somebody else that has the same love-hate relationship to hard labor. No naming names.
Now, hard labor, I like.
Are you staring at me?
Love it.
It's Juliet.
I am 0 for 2 at hard labor.
I had to rub that in again. I'm so sorry.
I'm going to try it again.
That's okay.
You're starting to sound like that homeless guy out in front of the gas station. Oh, well, loaded with fish. You got to go back over here.
I got 4 walls. I promise you. All right. So let's hear from you, Joey. What is, if you was done, I didn't mean to stop you there.
Yeah.
If you was,
okay. I consider it like, within our community, it's like the Bassmaster Classic for our community. It's bringing all these guys together that have fished these other clubs that come in, and let's see what we got. See if we can just grind it out and have fun. It's a group of guys that just love fishing. We eat, sleep, and breathe it. I mean. It's crazy, but this is February 25th, but I'm going to be thinking every single day what kind of methodology I can apply to try to go out there and catch these fish to have a really good bag. And David and I will, we'll be talking to each other, brainstorming before, and that's what other guys do. But I consider it like the Bassmaster Classic for our community.
And it can be caught on baits that's like that small, or it can be caught on baits it's going to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But talking about community as well, just kind of mention this and I'll kind of conclude the show with it. We also are going to have some stuff coming up very, very soon. Go ahead and put it out there. We'll be posting some details at some point in time in the near future. We may be getting a hold of some new Georgia Bass Tech hats. Richardson 112. So we're not going to be the ones ourselves getting paid for it, but we're going to actually have the individuals that's tied in through for the hats and stuff for selling them as well. So we'll be putting them out there as well. But I do want to mention again, before folks start hopping off of here, make sure if you have not signed up for the Nights of Lights, January 21st, that's 2 Saturdays coming up. We'll be down there in Atlanta. The website, Georgia Bass Tech, go to it. We have the address on the TEC's page, gabasstech.com, and you need to sign up for meal tickets. If you have not done so already, we got to have those meal tickets purchased so that way the Shriners can accommodate for how many people are planning on attending so they don't bring lesser food than actually is sold. So we're limited it to 200. So make sure get on there, pay for those meal tickets before it's too late with it. So Michael's got one last question, and I'm trying to conclude it, guys. I promise you. Michael Bostick's asking, do you think we will ever see a state versus state?
I hope so.
Yeah, there has been talk, state versus state, and that could be a whole nother show in itself, just talking about it for hours. It's been years in talk. I mean, there's been times that other states have reached out through. I've had conversations with. It just never did fully come through. I mean, it's tough enough to bringing all the different regions in Georgia together at one lake, more or less, to try to travel out of state somewhere neutral. It is challenging, but I do feel like Chris was talking about, at some point in time, yes, I do believe it without a doubt. There will be something like that set up at some point, and hopefully it's through a foundation that is established through our groups. Men, appreciate it. y'all joining. Congratulations again, Joey, on no offense, David. I know you as the sub, but congratulations, Joey.
The Christmas help.
The Christmas. Holy cow. You have just gained the name from now on, David. I'm sorry.
He's the tournament Christmas help.
So, okay, I'll bring him a hat, so he'll be good to go.
Oh, Clark.
You can get him a shirt made that says #1 part-timer.
I'll put sub. I'll get a shirt that says sub. Alternate.
I'll take that.
I love fishing with David. I love ripping on.
Hey, my daughter used to work at Subway. I can take the whey off a sub and bring it. What do you think of that?
That would work.
Oh, I shouldn't have said Subway. They'll probably ding me for that for saying that. I'm sorry. Anyways, let's don't run down a rabbit hole too much. Again, congrats to both y'all men for qualifying for the TEC. Wish y'all the best. Safe travels going up there. If you do practice going up there, make sure put in not on the right ramp. It's obviously probably going to be closed gate over it. Put in on the left side. Don't unhook your boat until it's floating because it is straight up and down. So appreciate each and every one of y'all, men. Thank y'all for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Congrats,
Right.
guys.
All right. Good night.
See you, Chris. All righty. That concludes our Hooked Up Live. And I'm telling you what, that was a very, very interesting topics that we've had tonight. Appreciate mostly our fans joining on tonight, watching our Hooked Up Live. We'll be going again, Hooked Up Live, Thursday night. That's 2 nights from now. We have our anglers coming up. We ain't got a whole lot, about halfway through, a little bit over halfway through with our interviews. Appreciate each and every one of y'all tuning in tonight. Again, if you have not, make sure, get over there, purchase your meal tickets. I can't stress that enough. GeorgiaBassTech.com, purchase your meal tickets. You have to go through Venmo and actually pay. If you not want to go through that route, and you don't have to be, let me stress this, you don't have to be an angler in the TEC to be able to come to the Nights of Lights. So it's a benefit for the Shriners Hospital Foundation. So 100% of our proceeds that we receive is going to the Shriners. The TEC is not going to be collecting funds for our use at all. 100% of it is going to that organization. So really, really good folks for helping out some really needy, needful situations of families that stand in need. So appreciate each and every one of our sponsors for Hooked Up Live, Line Taming Serum, Just Catch Bass, Star Lures, Dugout, Bait and Tackle, Tiny Boat Nation, G2 Gemini Jerseys, PFD Fishing. Appreciate each and every one. And also just to mention, hey guys, Waleska, the band, is going to be there, Nights of Lights, in 2 weeks. But that concludes our show. Appreciate each and every one of y'all watching. I'm going to take and let the reel go for our Nights of Lights. We'll see y'all Thursday night. God bless.
There's no telling what electric John boat fishing could turn into.
Taking this TEC to a much higher level.
This is the best anglers in the state.
The TEC's the cream of the crop.
Meet a lot of folks with similar interests, in different parts of the state.
It's a community experience. We enjoyed every second of it.
It's a super big deal for us, something we won't forget for
a
very long time.
Something we absolutely will never forget.
Yeah, I'm still over the moon. It's amazing.
Let's get up there. Come on.
Community to John boat fishing that it's become, especially here in Georgia, it's an amazing thing to see. We enjoyed every second of it.